Hey everyone, live from Brooklyn, Andres here, and we're going to be talking about presets today. What are presets? How do you make them? How do you use them? How do you share them? Some of you are here because you have seen some presets I've shared and you like them. And some of you are here because you don't like them and want to make some of yourself. And it's okay, I'm not super worried about it. My goal here is to help you today to get where you want to go. So first, let's define it. What is a preset? A preset is an edit, but an edit you like so much you copy and you paste it and use it again to simplify your workflow. It's important to point out that not all presets are made the same, and not all presets will save you. Sometimes they work great in low light with someone with dark skin, and then you use it later in really beautiful high noon with someone with light skin, and it looks terrible. You have to remember that every photo is different, so a preset is more of a guide. And so let's get into them, how to make it. Right now we're looking at Adobe Lightroom. Adobe Lightroom is the program that I edit with all the time. I primarily use an Apple Pencil on the iPad Pro running Lightroom. You'll see that I have up a picture of my mom watering some plants. I love this photo a lot. And if you simply tap in this right corner, you'll see that there is a preset tab. In that preset tab, there are a ton of them. These top ones you see: color, creative, black and white, default. Those are all ones that come loaded into Lightroom. You can also get some more for free by simply getting out of the Edit tab and going over to the Discover tab. We'll look at some of mine because I know those are the best. You scroll through, and if I just, let's find a nice dramatic one. If I just press and hold over my photo, you'll see the before and the after. This is a thing that you can do regular Lightroom editing, but since people have the opportunity to share their presets and their edits everywhere on Lightroom, you can go ahead and look through and find something that might be what you're looking for, or just give you a better example of how to use some of the edit tools. So let's say you love this picture of the plants in my bathroom. After you scroll through and see how all the edits change, at the very bottom you'll see this illuminated blue button that lets you save it as a preset. And now, Summer Vibes in Any Room is yours to use. It has my name on it, so in case you forget or you save a lot of them, that's where you can find them. And so let's get back to the photo we were editing. We're going to go back to Library. I guess we lost that one, so let's use this picture of Kurt instead. The first thing I want to do is I want to kind of explain what's happening with this edit panel. On this right-hand side, if you look at this that I'm circling, you have light, color, effects, detail, optics, and geometry. Just to knock a couple out of the way, optics primarily is focused on just having lens correction. So sometimes your lenses are a little concave or convex. So on maybe the edges of your photo, sometimes they can be a little bowed in or out, and that just helps that. Geometry allows you to straighten things out, to rotate them, to kind of bring, let's say you take an image that's a little tilted, to even it out. I wouldn't advise having either of these on when you're making presets, because I promise you there's no photo that you set a preset for that you then want to use the geometry one on. Geometry is a very individual, localized tool. Next is detail. Detail is also something I would try to avoid when you're making a preset. If you put your sharpening too high, you may over sharpen one portrait and it might look terrible and it might work for someone else in the future. So you definitely just want to avoid sharpening, because that's also something you can do localized and make an individual decision on in the future. Effects, however, are nice. So there's texture, clarity, and dehaze. Dehaze I would avoid, just like the other ones, because dehaze's primary function is it's almost like an inverse for contrast. But clarity can give you a little bit of sharpness in your midtone, gives you a little bit of crunch. But either of these I wouldn't have too high. Now you're wondering, dang dude, there's 6 of these and you told me I can't use 4. Well, light and color are what you should be focusing on. So first you go to color, and if you look at the color grading tool, for your preset, you could say that I want my shadows to be purple. And let's say I want my midtones to be kind of yellow. Let's say we're celebrating the Lakers for some reason. And then I want my highlights to be green. Now all of a sudden you're seeing this like kind of intense photo. And like I said, not all presets are made the same. So you have to understand that this might work for one thing but not the other. But let's say you want to do something more toned down. Let's just hit back a few times. Let's go back to our shadows. Let's say, okay, we see this lovely deep red in the back. If we just slide over toward red, you see this adding a little bit of pink, but it's adding some more color to the subject's face. when you're making a preset, you want something that will be a nice base for you, but can definitely show you the difference in an edit. So what I mean is, if we press down on the photo, 1 second. Sorry, let me close out a color grading. If you press down on the photo, you'll see the before and after. The before was actually a little bit of green, but you didn't realize that until before. Next, maybe we want to just bring up our vibrance a little bit and bring down our saturation. Vibrance is like smart saturation. Saturation is kind of a dumb tool in that it makes everything more saturated. But vibrance figures out what colors are less prominent and then makes us a little bit better. Where you really want to do a lot of your work is with contrast, shadows, whites, and highlights. So we'll bring up our contrast a little bit, bring down our whites, bring down our blacks. And you see now we're starting to get a little bit of attitude to this. We can add a little bit of clarity. And now we have a photo that we're starting to like. So like I said, a preset is an opportunity to find an edit you like and then use it in similar conditions. So what we know about this image is it's in dappled light. It is in the middle of the day with high noon, and it, I feel like, is a little bit crunchier. So maybe in the future, if I'm doing something fashion related, I do this. But if I was doing a portrait shoot for, let's say, a magazine, I wouldn't use this cover even if it was in high noon because it might be a little bit too aggressive for that. So to recap, presets are edits. Lightroom allows you to copy and paste them, save them, and even upload them for others to share. Being smart about how you use presets is really important for you as a photographer, but if you're not at that point yet, the first thing you want to do is get in there, play around, and get used to the tools. So we found a preset that we like. We found an edit that feels warm, it feels kind of pink. I think it kind of plays with some masculinity, and I really like it. So then what happens? If you tap these 3 dots in the top right corner, you'll see there's an option that says Create Preset. So now it says, give it a preset name. We'll call this, we'll call this Video Joint, because we are currently making a video joint. And you'll see along here, it gives you the option. Do you want to keep light on, effects, detail? Remember I said keep optics and geometry off, and kind of avoid detail if you can. So you can click through, or you can even hit these little arrows and it'll give you an option to turn certain things on and off. Other thing to keep in mind when you're making a preset, avoid anything that changes the exposure or changes the temperature, because a lot of different things can happen. For example, notice that in this room right now, it looks kind of like daylight. But we're inside of an enclosed room, there's lights and stuff. They have color temperatures. Often the photos that you're taking, the color temperatures will vary even slightly. And so if you have your preset choosing a color temperature, you're almost always going to change it anyway. So just try your best to have your presets avoid color temperature edits and exposure, because you could backlight one, you can do something else with the other. So just try your best and really focus on like your curves, your shadows and highlights, your color grading and color mix. Next thing you have to be asking is like, oh, this is a lot of work. Like, why am I doing all this work? Well, one thing you have to remember is when we were shooting film, the film kind of made choices for us. Fuji, Canon, Kodak, like all of these films had a specific look. And that's why when you look at presets now, they're named after these. There's Velvia 100, there's Artista 400, like all these things, or the Elite Chrome 100, like these are all different things that would make color decisions for us. And now since we're shooting, especially in RAW, I hope you're shooting in RAW, you have the option to make really the executive decision about what color the shadows are, how deep the highlights are. Like, that control is amazing, but with it, you have a lot of work to do. And so making some presets that you feel comfortable with is important because it gives you a good base point. When you comment on my photos and say like nice tones, I spend even more time editing than I do shooting. I spend a lot of time in production trying to figure out where I want to shoot. I obviously shoot, and then after I want to make sure that the mood of the image is delivered really well. And so a pinker image or a yellower image feels warmer, it feels more personable. Something bluer feels a little bit colder. But that could be helpful depending on what you're looking for. Deeper shadows, lighter shadows, more contrast. There's so many things you can do. So after you finish it, you can save it to a different group. Here's all these options for presets I have. Hit save, and then it'll tell you right here, video joint saved. So if we go to another image, we can just go to presets. We'll go down to user presets where we know that they are. And since the video joint, and I rightly named it, should be all the way at the bottom, hit that. And now we have kind of like this cool warm meets blue meets highlights, and the vibe is similar. It also helps you edit a lot of photos all at once. What I mean by that is if you go back to this main screen in the library, you hold down, you can select a couple images. So let's skate across, select these 9. Maybe not these 2. Select these ones. And then at the bottom you can hit paste, and then it'll paste the preset to all your images. So once you spend the time to set the preset, set the mood, if you have images that have similar light, similar scenarios, then you can just paste and keep it moving. You don't have to spend time working on every one of them. Lightroom helps you speed things up. Presets help you speed things up. It gives you more control. So let's get to it. I want to see what you make. Drop your presets below.